in order that we may closely examine their claims of psychic powers and related skills. First, I need somebody's autograph. Let me see, a lot of eligible people over here. I'm sure they can all sign their names. I'll bet you can. Yes. Would you join us up there, please? I'm going over to the board, and we're going to do a little bit of an experiment. Now, we haven't met just yet, but this is the experimental board. I'm going to ask you to take this big marker here, and if you would be kind enough, please, write your signature across the face of the board here as large as you can from about there to there. Now, a signature is something rather unique, of course. You've done this for many years now. Not as many as I have, but thank you. If you just stand over to the side now, I'm going to show you something peculiar. You know, as we say, a signature is something that belongs to you and to you only. And it's rather strange to stand there and see somebody that you've never met before actually doing your signature, but doing it in a most peculiar way. In this case, doing it backwards and upside down. I don't know whether you might have a blank check in your pocket there that isn't doing anything at the moment, but if you do, perhaps you'd like to loan it to me. I'd keep it for a couple of weeks, and I'm sure that it'll come back to you through the bank eventually. I'm sure that you use this signature in making out huge checks for huge amounts of money, and I would like to test whether or not this signature might also do the job. Let me see, one more to do now, around like that, and we thank you very much for your kind attention. What could be more distinctly personal in nature than your own signature or your handwriting? Tonight, we're investigating claims that some people can reveal your personality, your emotional life, and even your career possibilities by examining your personal possessions. We have searched for people who claim to have these powers. Some have come forward and are willing to be tested. These tests are drawn up in agreement with each claimant to determine whether or not they can demonstrate their claims under controlled conditions. For years now, I have offered $10,000 to anyone who can demonstrate psychic powers in a controlled situation. Tonight, one of our guests will attempt a preliminary test, and if she is successful in that, she will come back to stake a claim to that $10,000. One psychic ability is known as psychometry, not to be confused with psychometric personality tests. Psychometry claims to be able to read emotions and vibrations that certain personal objects have absorbed. Such things as keys, jewelry, clothing, and even homes are said to take up these mysterious influences. One who claims to be able to read such things is Petrine. Petrine, would you give us a quick demonstration using a personal object? Let's use something from this lady behind you, for example. You haven't met her before, have you? No. Okay.
Okay, the first thing that I want to say is this lady is very, very unhappy about her work situation. She's totally in the wrong career. The second thing that I want to say is she's carrying around quite a lot of anger with her, and there's somebody quite close to her that she needs to forgive. Thirdly, there's somewhere to go. She should get out of the environment that she is. There's somewhere in her past to go back to where things aren't quite resolved. I have a feeling that it's in the country, something like that. Somewhere from the past, she needs to pay a return visit because things there aren't resolved. And I would advise this lady to keep away from the colour red and also red foods, red drinks, because they're actually aggravating her at the moment. Okay.
There goes red wine and strawberries right there. What do you say to that?
The work situation, I don't think is true, because I'm a student and happy with that.
I see. Anything else that...
I could read into the rest, but it's not that relevant, I don't.
Could I just point out,
yes.
First of all, all right, I accept that, but first of all, you have to go deep into yourself. When I tell people things, I don't tell them off the top of my head. I am speaking on a very deep level. So you have actually got to be very honest with yourself to hear what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. How accurate is this information usually?
Very.
Well, that seems harmless enough, but it does have a serious side, of course. Now, there's a lady here, Danu Kagbara. You were recently described in a magazine as a, quote, psychic junkie, unquote. Now, why did you go to psychics for advice?
Well, I think I was quoted as a former psychic junkie, which I should have been.
I see.
Because I'm no longer convinced about this type of thing that I've just witnessed. But the reason why I used to go was it was part of this eternal quest for an easy-peasy way of dealing with life's problems. And I regard my former dependence on clairvoyance and psychics as a weakness.
I see.
I think it was... I hear that men go, but I think it's a peculiarly female weakness.
Well, there's obviously some debate about the value and accuracy of psychometry, and Patrine has gallantly agreed tonight to a more stringent experiment, the terms of which we've agreed to in advance. Patrine, will you join us at the table? Now, if an object contains the psychic imprint of its owner, then two objects borrowed from the same person should contain the same imprint. Is this correct?
That is correct. If I could actually just say that that is in a very broad sense.
Well, we have wristwatches here. We borrowed a wristwatch and a set of keys from each of 5 members of the audience. They've been mixed up, and you will try by psychic means to match each watch with the correct set of keys. When you've made your decision, please match the pairs of watches and keys together by placing one set in each one of these sections on the table. Good luck, Patrine.
Thank you.
If Patrine matches all 5 sets correctly, it may prove that psychic imprints do exist and she can read them. If she gets just 1 or 2 correct, that is the result that we would expect if you were simply guessing. Well, the choices have been made. Chances of getting all 5 correct by guessing alone, not by psychic powers, are exactly 1 in 120. If no psychic powers were operating, statistically, you would expect to get just 1 or 2 correct. I'll now ask the 5 owners to come forward and select their wristwatches, ignoring the keys that have been matched to them. Now, gentlemen, you're standing behind your correct wristwatches. Look at the keys, if you will, please. And if they are not the correct keys, reach forward and slide them towards the front edge of the table. Now, if you please. I see. So Patrine's score actually on this is 1 out of 5. Exactly what we'd expect by chance. Gentlemen, would you retrieve your keys, your correct keys, please? Just reach across and grab them. And they must belong to you, sir. You know, it's thought-provoking to observe that the results obtained are the same as those predicted by chance. Now, this one test cannot, of course, prove or disprove psychometry. We'd have to run the test many times over and would have to be sure that the psychic was not either consciously or unconsciously picking up other clues from the objects or from the subjects. The strange thing is that regardless of the evidence, we still believe in psychics, and many people seek them out to guide their lives. Remember, sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're wrong. Patrine, thank you for being courageous enough to come and participate in our program. It seems that you can do a lot of reading about writing. Any bookstore or library today offers a great selection of books on personality analysis through handwriting. Though psychometry may not be used in a serious commercial sense, evaluating personality and personal potential through handwriting is used. The use of graphology in business to assess people for purposes of employment is on the increase. In 1979, an estimated 85% of European firms used graphology for recruitment purposes, so that if you happen to apply to one of those firms, you might have been either selected or rejected by this process. Now, please welcome an expert graphologist, Mr. Duncan McIntosh. Duncan, thank you for coming tonight. In a few moments, you're going to demonstrate your expertise with the assistance of 5 volunteers. Now, graphologists often suggest that someone is in the wrong job based on an analysis of their handwriting.
40% of us are in the wrong job.
Now, normally you would be told by the company you're working for that they're looking for a particular person, a salesman, for example, and they'd ask you for an analysis of a handwriting sample. Is that right?
Right.
Well, tonight you've agreed to do this test with us. Earlier in the day, we gave you 5 examples of handwriting, each one from a different career, a career that you have designated as being suitable for this experiment. Well, we have a saleswoman, computer training officer, an artist, a secretary, and a farmer, and these 5 ladies are with us in the studio tonight. We've tried to avoid leaving any clues in the handwriting samples as to each person's career. Nevertheless, I understand that on the basis of graphological analysis, you've tried to allocate each sample to its author.
Right.
Now, the expected result by chance would be to get 1 out of the 5 correct, by chance alone, and there's a less than 1% chance of your getting all 5 correct. Let's start with sample A.
She is a person who is very adaptable. She can adapt herself anywhere, but at the same time, she's a little introverted. So I had a tussle whether it was the computer or the saleswoman, and I went for the saleswoman.
Thank you very much. Will Lady A please go to the sales ladies section? That would be the brush salesman right here, I believe. Now, what about number B here?
Yeah, that's a very difficult one, because you see, here is somebody who feels that they have not used all their talents. The job she should be doing, whatever she's doing, and I put her as computers.
So you placed Lady B in the computer profession?
I did.
I'm going to ask Lady B to step over behind the computer. All right, and what about C?
She's one who likes plenty of space, doesn't like to be cooped up. She is up in the clouds a bit. She does a lot of thinking, and I'm going to say something particularly definite here, and she can tell me whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Do you have a scar in your abdomen?
Wrong.
No, you don't.
No scar on the abdomen. What profession did you allocate this
Well,
lady to?
I allocated her between the land and, in fact, the sales.
You chose this lady?
I chose the land, that's right.
All right, this lady will step around to where we find the tractor down in the end there, please. And what about sample D?
Well, in sample D, I decided that this was the artist because of the intuition, considerable intuition here, and one who, in fact, is very versatile in all aspects. There is a lightness and delicacy to the handwriting.
So this lady is the artist in your estimation. Very well. Would you step over behind the palette and the brushes, please? And finally, I think I can guess which one this is.
Yes, it was here between the secretary and the computer, and I came for the secretary because home life is vital, and she's logical as well, and she can good with people.
See, well, we have not much choice for you, young lady. Would you step over behind the typewriter, please, because you apparently are supposed to be the secretary. Well, I'm going to ask each one of these ladies in turn. First of all, number 1, are you indeed a salesman? Vote with yes or no. You are not a salesperson. And number 2, are you a computer expert? You are not. Number 3, are you the artist? Ah, you are. And number 4, are you that secretary we're looking for? Apparently not. And number 5, are you a farmer? I see. Well, would you please move to the correct positions that you belong in, the 4 ladies that were not correct? Would you move to the correct positions? Now we know who is really in that profession. We expected that according to chance, Duncan, you would get 1 correct, and you got exactly 1 correct. Thank you very much, Duncan. We're very grateful for you coming along here this evening. Now, as we mentioned earlier, graphology is widely used on the continent, and its use is increasing here in Britain. But there seems to be quite a margin of error. How would you feel if your career depended on the analysis of your handwriting? We have some distinguished visitors in our audience tonight who should have something to say about this subject. Dr. Donald McLeod, how accurate do you think graphology is for recruitment purposes, for example?
No more accurate than your demonstration here tonight, I'm afraid. All the work that I've ever seen shows that the kinds of effects you get are random effects. And if you want to elaborate the idea of a random effect, imagine recruiting people by taking a pile of application forms, chucking them out the window, and choosing those that land face up. That's what random is.
Is there any proof, scientific proof, that's been established for its efficiency?
Not that I can find. I have looked at a lot of work, and people have been working on this, looking for things to see if it really does work. Because on the face of it, it's a nice idea. You're your person is encapsulated in your handwriting, we feel. Therefore, you ought to be able to do something with it.
I see. Well, the gentleman seated beside you is Ryszek Piasecki, and he's with the English Glass Company. You're the chief executive of that company, I understand. How do you rate graphology and its success rate?
In context, very well. It can't be used in absolute terms, but I use it, the organization uses it, as part of the interviewing process, the selection process. And it assists us considerably in finding the right characteristics within a person, which would match with those characteristics in the job that we're looking for.
Can you give me an example?
Yes, I have a particular negative example where Duncan warned us against taking a person on, and he described him as being difficult to pin down and somewhat slippery. And we disregarded that, and a year on we fired him. And Duncan was absolutely right.
I see. Well, this demonstration that we gave tonight, limited though it was, does that change your opinion in any way?
No, I think one needs to turn it round. Clearly, a number of people are in the wrong job. To actually analyse from handwriting their profession or what job they're in, I think is almost impossible.
I see. Professor Jerry Mars, you have some opinions on this subject too. Would you like to share those with us?
Graphology is really a kind of magic. And it's a kind of magic because it fills the gap that you find in simple societies where science only takes you so far, knowledge only takes you so far, and you need something else. And magic comes in to fill this.
Why do you think, Professor, that people do rely on things like graphology, for example?
Because of insecurity. It's a very insecure job taking people into a firm. And especially is it insecure when you're taking them in as executives.
And would you say that graphology, in your estimation, Professor, has any basis in science whatsoever?
No, I would say it hasn't. I would say it's not able to have been replicated. It's ambiguous. Its tests have not been confirmed. It's a pseudo-science, really.
You had a comment, John?
I'd just say that handwriting analysis has absolutely nothing to do with anything that is mystical. It has no spiritual dimension whatsoever. And in answer to the professor, I would say that a professional graphologist works on the basis of very, very accurate measurement and percentage assessments. The body of knowledge which has been brought together to constitute graphology has been built up over 60 years from close examination and from seeing a certain pattern of psychology appearing with a certain pattern of writing. It is not a pseudoscience. It has no mystical element whatsoever. It's a subject very much like Russian or engineering. It's a subject that can be learned.
I would say that astrology has a history rather longer, several thousand years, and it's still non-scientific.
No, this has nothing to do with astrology.
Gentlemen, I really have to tie it up now. Ladies and gentlemen, and in the front row, particularly our celebrities and all the rest of you, I want to thank you very much for coming along here this evening. Well, this obviously is a contentious issue. Is this another example of people unsure of their decisions, looking to share the responsibility with some other person? Would you be happy if an employer decided your future on the basis of the way you wrote? And if they did, would they tell you? Now, do you think the person in this photo is living or dead? Our last guest tonight believes that by looking at a photograph, she can tell us something about the person in that photo, including whether or not that person is alive or dead. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Agnes Freeman. Agnes, earlier in the day we gave you 5 photographs. They're smaller versions of the ones we now have behind us. Choosing the photograph was a difficult task. We tried to ensure that as few clues as possible remain. Surroundings, clothing, hairstyle may all give a clue as to the age of a photograph. And thus, the likelihood as to whether or not the person is living or dead might be given away. I believe you used a pendulum to divine whether or not each person is living or dead?
Correct, yes.
Now, how does that work?
If the person is alive, the pendulum is turning usually right. If the person is dead, either it's not turning at all, or I don't get any kind of reading on the person.
So it's whether or not
on the aura.
I see. Now, Agnes has told us that if she is successful tonight, she would like to go on to a second test, independently supervised, to claim the $10,000 that I have offered for many years to anyone who can produce psychic phenomena under controlled conditions. Is that right, Agnes?
That's right.
All right. Well, first things first. Let's see how well you'll do with just 5 photographs. Now, there are tough odds against getting all 5 correct. This first photograph, what do you make of this lady?
What I made out of this lady is, I got the name, she's alive.
Yes.
And her name is Sandra, or somebody who belongs to her. The name is Sandra, and a lot of sadness in the past.
Alive or dead now?
She's alive.
She is alive. All right, we'll put a tick on that one to indicate that this is a living lady. I hope you're correct. Now, on number 2 here, we have a young gentleman of unknown profession. What would you tell us about him?
Well, he's very much alive, and what I got with him is, around him, I also get the feeling of teaching on the Irish connection, and I see him also got something to do with the Swiss Alps, either yet or going to there in the near future.
So this gentleman is alive, then, in
This
your
gentleman's
estimation.
alive.
All right, we'll stick a tick right up there on his eye, so we'll remember. And number 3, this rather exotic-looking gentleman with a little goatee. What do you say about him?
What I got with him is very much alive, and he's a born mystic, psychic, artistic, musical, whatever you can think of. He got everything, about everything.
So you say that he's alive as well?
He's alive.
And so he gets the red tick. And moving on to this more elderly gentleman.
The elderly gentleman is alive as well.
He is?
Yes. What I pick up with him is the eyes.
So he is alive,
He's
but
alive.
he has problems with the eyes. Very well, and he gets the red tick as well. So thank you very much, Agnes. Now for number 5. What do you say about this gentleman?
This gentleman is not alive. I got any kind of readings on him. And also I felt the photographs very cold. Also I get Somerset with him in the past. Whatever I got in him, the reading what I have time for is all in the past, not in the present.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Agnes. Would you join me over here, please? Let's just review your psychic decision of the condition of each person shown. You said number 1 is alive, number 2 is alive, number 3 is alive, number 4 is alive, and number 5 is dead. Let's see who's really still alive. All of them, except number 2. So you got 3 correct and 2 wrong. I'm sorry, Agnes. I know that's not what you had hoped for. Nevertheless, you did come along to participate, and I think you deserve a big thank you. In the case of the psychometry test tonight, in which keys and wristwatches were matched up, as well as in the matching of handwriting to professions by means of graphology, we expected one match would be made if chance alone were operating. The living or dead test with photographs, which you have just seen, called for 2 or 3 to be correct by chance alone. In all 3 cases, our guests have scored just what chance would call for, so that in our admittedly small number of trials, none of the special skills or powers seem to have been demonstrated. The question remains, do these abilities really exist? Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the evidence. You make up your own minds. I'm James Randi. Good night.
That was the last in the present series of James Randi Investigates.